It's the Vestavia Hills City Schools podcast. I'm Whit McGee.
And I'm Brooke Whitworth.
Well, Brooke, how are you doing? It's good to see you.
I'm doing well, Whit. It's been quite a busy month. I cannot believe we are almost at the end of September.
I know. Goodness gracious. Where has time gone?
I know.
So what's been some things that you've been doing out in the schools here recently?
Well, we've just finished 3 days of phonics first training for our kindergarten first and second grade teachers. And to some, that might not sound too exciting, but it was really a great day of training. And I feel like it was a great refresher for our teachers, and they're fired up and ready to teach some phonics.
Okay. This is just all the little things that go into professional learning and the things that make learning come alive for our students. It's interesting to see the back end of that, where the teachers are getting learning themselves and everything.
That's right. I don't think people realize how much time teachers spend in school or training themselves to really prepare and be ready to teach our students. I think that's important to know. And we spent the whole morning today with our principals in a very similar situation. They were doing some training and learning, and we did instructional rounds together. So our principals are continuing to learn as well.
There you go. Well, one of my favorite things so far has been going to a couple of school assemblies. I went to one at Vestavia Hills Elementary Liberty Park, and then another one this week at East, that are focused on core values. And the schools have these great systems in place that are focused on character education. They both are currently award winners on a state and national level for character education. And so one of the things that's really powerful that they do is that they, in each of their core values, each of those character traits that they want to emphasize with students, they divide the students up into houses or teams that focus on individual core values. And so one of the things that is really exciting for students to look forward to is the kindergartners get put in those houses. And each of the houses, each of the teams choose the kindergartners. So it's just so exciting for them to feel like there's this group of older students that wants me to be with them, is excited to welcome me into their group. And it is so encouraging to see that in the schools.
Yeah, it's a wonderful way to really create that community in a school. And like you said, to connect not just kids with students in their own grade level, but to be able to connect students across, kindergarten through fifth grade. So
Dr. Patrick Martin is here with us today. He's our Assistant Superintendent of Operations and Services in the school system. Dr. Martin, hello.
Well, hello. How are you both doing?
We're doing great. It's great to have you here today. We're going to be talking today about our facilities, where all of the magic happens of learning and character and all of these great things goes on. It takes a whole lot of buildings and a whole lot of square footage and a whole lot of people to make that come together. And Dr. Martin, you are our lead person who's working to oversee a lot of the great things going on in operations and services. Can you tell us a little bit about just where you're from and how you got here to Vestavia, what you like about Vestavia?
Oh, sure. Well, let me just start off by saying I really appreciate the opportunity. Appreciate you guys asking me to come in and talk with you today. So this is my 23rd year in education. That's hard to believe it's gone this fast. I love education from a family of educators. Started off about 14, 15 years out of state experience, both teaching and in administration, and took on a task project, let's say, in a system here in Jefferson County for 4 years when we moved to Alabama as a family. And saw the Vestavia Hills position and talked with the superintendent, who I had a lot of respect and admiration for, and we thought that this would be a good fit. And 5 years later, been serving as the assistant superintendent for operations.
So, Dr. Martin, can you tell us a little bit about what you do in your position and in general, what's been going on with operations in our system?
Sure. So if Dr. Freeman arrived March of 2018, I would have arrived here in July. And if you think about what was going on in the system at that time, there was, we hit the ground running. So you think about the rezoning that took place about that time period. The Board of Education had purchased 2 new schools, Gresham Elementary School, which is now our Vestavia Hills Elementary Dolly Ridge, and then the former Berry High School campus, which is now the Pizitz Middle School. And so coming in, really our task was to support the process of rezoning and then ready those two buildings for student attendance that following fall. If you recall, we ended up punting for that year to finalize that building, and brought middle schoolers in that following year on the new Pizitz Middle School campus. So really to start the career here in Vestavia Hills, there was quite a bit going on.
Yeah, you weren't busy at all, were you?
That's right. And that, for those of us that like, to keep our lists and check boxes as we complete tasks, perfect position for me.
Well, so what has been your favorite thing about the work that you've done and that you've gotten to be a part of since arriving in Vestavia Hills?
When you step into a role in education, I truly feel across the entire spectrum of educators, we want to make a difference. We want to impact the lives of students. And so when you think of the footprint of the Vestavia Hills City School system in 2017, and then you think of it today, the impact of the wonderful decision-making the Board of Education has made as we've experienced growth to two new buildings here in Vestavia Hills. The rezoning, which I know was difficult for some, but, we're now past that process, and I feel it's been a successful move for the system. You can really see the impact, and a successful impact, I'd like to say, by the administration. And that's across all buildings, Board of Education, here at the Board of Education office. I think it's really special when you can see the benefits of all of the hard work that has gone in. Brooke, a second ago, you talked about all of the wonderful things you do on the on the curriculum and instruction side of the house, and how there's a lot of work that goes into that that people probably don't see. We see it here. Brooke, I see you here in your office, getting ready for PD sessions, the creativity, the sweat equity that goes into that, and it's neat to see the benefits on the other side.
And I think one thing people don't think about or maybe realize is that when we think about schools or a school system, we think about teaching and learning. What are the teachers doing? What are the students learning? But without proper and well-kept facilities, then none of that can happen. And so I think it's really neat to dig into this side of schools today because what you all do is the facilities, and Dr. Martin oversees our CMP program, which is our child nutrition program. So feeding our kids breakfast and lunch. He works with our custodial staff to make sure that our schools are kept clean and ready for our kids to learn. Also works with our maintenance crew and our bus drivers so that we have transportation for some of our students for field trips, and that, again, our buildings are well kept, updated, and then any issues are addressed. So I think all of those aspects really, create a building and a place where kids can learn and teachers can teach. So without all of those things, the other doesn't really happen as well as it could. So I'm glad that we're really able to talk about all of that today.
I like to, and I've mentioned this before in meetings, new teacher, when we were together for that, and other meetings that we'd have had with administrative staff. I like to think of the curriculum and instruction. That's really the craft and the art of teaching. Our side of the house is really the business side of the house. We do all of those things so that magic in the classroom with teachers and students really can take place.
Brooke, you started talking about facilities and Dr. Martin, just about all the details and the things surrounding our students and staff. In our annual report, which we referenced in one of our last episodes, just came out back in August. You can grab a copy at any of our schools, City Hall, here at the Board of Education, the Chamber of Commerce. If you flip to the very last page in the annual report, we've got some data in there about operations in the school system. And some of these numbers, this is the first time we've ever included operations data in an annual report. So a lot of this was new to me. Brooke, I may have been new to you as well. I don't know. But 1.3 million square feet of building space in our school system. That puts it up there with some of the biggest skyscrapers in the United States, with all that space spread out at 9 individual campuses and the Board of Education as well, and the maintenance facility that a lot of folks I probably don't even know is there. 812,000 meals served in the last school year alone. over 125,000 miles driven by bus, field trips, other routes in the school system, and then utility costs of a little over $3.2 million per year. Can you share with us just some thoughts about what that looks like on just a day-to-day basis for the team and the people who are overseeing those things?
I do. I'd just like to start by saying when I meet with our staff, so when we talk with bus drivers, when we talk with CNP staff, when we talk with our maintenance staff and custodians, I try to empower them and share with them. I appreciate how humble this group is. I've mentioned time and time again with our team that, we're like a good sports official. And what I mean by that is the best officials, I feel like, in a volleyball game or a football game or a basketball game are the ones that you never even knew were there. And the reason that I say that is because, how many times does a student get off a bus and just, man, that was the best bus ride ever. Thank you so much. Those kudos just don't come very often. So I feel like one of my roles is to continue to be a cheerleader for the outstanding staff that we have on the operations side. We truly do want our stars of the show to be our teachers and our students. And so we feel like if we provide a good program for them on the operations side, we give them that ability to do so. So it's a really humble group. We also need to make sure that we are fiscally responsible. Responsible to the Board of Education, responsible to the Vestavia taxpayer. And so one of the things that Dr. Freeman has charged me with is we've done several studies to make sure that we're making sure that when we look at square footage, we don't have excess in terms of the numbers of folks that are helping support. But at the same time, we're not providing so few that our spaces go without. So, for example, the custodial staff at, let's say, the high school, we feel like, based on national standards, that we have the appropriate number of individuals that are taking care of that space. And that's something that, as an entity that's responsible to the taxpayer, we want to make sure that we have the appropriate numbers and study those quite often.
So I know recently you all conducted a facilities assessment. And so could you share with our listeners what was involved in that assessment and maybe some things that stood out or even made us aware of future needs from that?
I know that Dr. Freeman presented to the board our One Rebel, One Future initiative, right, which I can tell you I'm very excited about. What has been really neat about that endeavor is that it started 4 years ago. This isn't just something that cropped up. The conversations with financial experts in the community to look at the books of Vestavia Hill and make determination of gaps and areas that we can continue to improve. Brooke, to your point, the facility assessment, our energy assessment with Schneider, looking at all of our different areas with Lathan and Associates, our architect. It's been neat to see all of these different areas come together to address need under this umbrella of One Rebel, One Future. Safety and security being a portion of that with DOL, our safety and security third party that supported us there. In terms of the facility assessment, we are looking at the creation of some new spaces to really push the envelope for student learning and student extracurricular activities. With that said, we need to make sure that we're addressing the need of current spaces. It does not make a lot of sense to create these new spaces when you're neglecting the spaces that students are learning in each and every day.
Sure.
And so that's what the facility assessment really did. So, Brooke, you had asked some questions, some eye-opening items there within the facility assessment. When you stop and you look at our mechanical systems, which we were talking earlier about mechanical systems, and I know you've got some statistics on that, but to think that 1/3 of all mechanical systems across the school system are 10 years or younger, 1/3 are 10 to 15 years, and 1/3 or 15 years are older. We have some mechanical systems that are 25 plus years. Wow. Those are systems that need to be addressed. And so, as you're looking at everything from mechanical systems to windows to building envelopes to roofs, we did an assessment of parking lots. When you look across the entire spectrum of the needs of all of our facilities, that's really what the facility assessment did. It gave us that document to be able to begin to address. And then our next step will be to sit down with principals and others and have conversations about prioritization.
Well, that's interesting you mentioned the mechanical systems because, again, that's going back to, just like you said, the things that the typical student, staff member doesn't think about on a day-to-day basis, but are essential to what we do. So, I found out just today, as a matter of fact, that when it just comes to heating, air conditioning systems, just the ventilation systems in the schools, HVAC, we have over 770 HVAC systems. And that goes back to what you were talking about, too, that the age on some of these is approaching 30 years old.
That's right.
You'd never imagine having something like that on your house, or if you did, it would need a lot of work, right?
That's right. And so you stop and you think of the staffing that's responsible for the upkeep of those systems. And this is where I was talking about making sure that we're being responsible with the taxpayer dollars. We employ a director of maintenance who has 4 staff that work with him. The high school and freshman campus each have a staff member that also works as a maintenance technician. Any other work that we do, we're contracting out. But wait, you think about the statistics that you just mentioned, and then you think about the fact that we have a small number of individuals that are responsible for making sure that you have 1.3 million square feet of climate conducive for learning. And they do it. That's the amazing part, is that we'll have different areas crop up where an air conditioning unit goes down, or this classroom over here feels warmer. But when you stop and you think of 1.3 million square feet that has to be conditioned, and those individuals that hold that responsibility, it's pretty amazing what those fellows get done.
And Brooke, just not to camp out on the issue of heating and air conditioning systems, but I know for a fact that you work with teachers who work with students who need extra help to stay focused, to stay on task, who need extra support just to be able to learn in a typical day, to take tests like every other student. And when the temperature of the classroom or the lighting of the classroom, we have over 17,000 light fixtures in the school system. I found that out today, too. When you have those things that aren't working optimally, that just creates, I would imagine, it would create additional barriers to learning and to helping those students get what they need.
Yeah, we all know that the environment, has to be conducive in order for learning to happen. So those are the lighting and even air or heat. I mean, that's just 2 components that go into it, as well as, we talked about our CMP staff, but making sure that our kids, are well fed and have eaten breakfast and lunch. I mean, that's just another component to being ready and able to learn.
Brooke, you bring up CNP, and Amanda Carlson, our director of the CNP, she's outstanding. Outstanding to the point that she's gone around and found either the niche or the specialization of each of our managers at the different schools. And I know you can speak to this, when we have professional development. So, for example, we're in the process right now of really working with assistant principals. It goes without saying that we don't look to outsource any catering. I just go down the hall and say, Amanda, do you think you could put together a catered meal for our assistant principals or this other group? We do that both in-house, but when we have Leadership Vestavia come to our school system, we also ask her and her team to cater for those events as well. It's that level of quality.
Oh, it is. Oh, look, I tell people all the time when I eat a school lunch several times a week here at the school, the elementary school that adjoins to our building. And I tell my friends all the time, I said, look, if the governor herself came to this school tomorrow for a tour, she would get lunch provided by our school system because it's that good.
If there's one negative I would have with Ms. Carlson and CNP, It's the fact that I probably once every 2 weeks have to put more money into my own children's meal programs. It's costing me a fortune.
Yes.
My son goes, I'm sure Walker,
Yes.
same thing.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, pay Pam's and I feel like it's in my bookmarks on Google.
I'm with you. Feeding 3 boys
That's right.
in the lunchroom every day is
That's
costly.
right.
But I mean, it makes me so proud as a parent to know that they can go into the lunchroom and eat, and they're excited about it, and they're fed healthy food, and I don't have to fix a lunch. So it's worth it.
It was good today. It was Mediterranean chicken and broccoli and new potatoes.
Can't say enough about that part of the team.
That's
Yes.
right. That's right. So thinking about the assessment and the work, and I want to mention just as a side note that the assessment is 169 pages long. This thing is extremely thorough.
That's right. That's right.
So what's the ultimate plan? Now you have this wealth of knowledge, and this is like the ultimate home inspector coming in, right? So what are you going to do, or what are we as a district going to do with all that information now?
Well, what we will do is the next step is, and I'll be presenting this to our Board of Education. So we have Sean Kalma, who is our system architect. He'll be joining me here in the month of September. We'll be presenting to the Board of Education on the facility assessment. Another component of this is our Healthy Schools campaign, which is Schneider and their team, and they will be in October to present to the board on aspects of energy efficiency that we may be able to tap into. And so if we're looking, as you mentioned, these large documents with all of this information in it, our plan is really, and those 2 presentations for us will kick off continued conversations at our campuses with those teams about how do we want to prioritize the work that will be done. Some work is just going to happen, right? We talked a little bit about mechanical systems that are aging and need to be addressed. Obviously, those are projects that will be taken on. But some of the other areas, we'll sit down with principals and say, where would you look to put the priority on these aspects of these projects? And so those conversations will take place. And then, hopefully this spring we have a positive result, and we're off and running by summer of 23 with the update of a lot of this work.
That's so exciting.
Yeah, it really is. Just to know that not only that we are envisioning new opportunities for students, but that we're also committed to the schools and the buildings and the people that have made the school system what it is over the last 50 years, that we're saying we're not forgetting about you either. You're coming along with us, and we're going to lift the entire district as a whole.
Well, and it's been exciting to see too, going throughout various schools over the past, I guess, week or two, seeing the pictures, the visual posters of what these opportunities could look like when we're also able to hopefully add and create some new exciting spaces. So I would encourage you to check those out when you're in your local school. And I know Dr. Martin mentioned that he would be presenting at an upcoming board meeting. And do you know when that will be, Dr. Martin?
Sure. So Sean Kalman and I will present in September.
Got it.
And then Todd Smith and his team from Schneider will be in October.
So make sure you either attend those board meetings, or you can obviously check those out online and hear more about what's to come. Before we wrap up, we definitely want to make sure, because I do not want to leave out anyone, but a big shout out to all of our staff really on this side of the school system, who, like I said, just really, they keep everything going. So our CMP staff, our nurses.
Yes.
I mean, we got to keep our kids healthy.
That's right.
Our school resource officers who make sure that we have safe environments for our students. I mentioned our maintenance and our custodial staff. So I think all of those, of course, bus, transportation, our bus drivers,
Mike Varner, yes,
maintenance.
he leads that team.
So all of our staff members who work in those areas, and our directors, and of course, Dr. Martin, I want to thank all of you for what you do for our students and for the rest of the school staff.
That is so good that you said that, Brooke. Absolutely. I mean, these are the folks that make our buildings come alive for our students and for our teachers and staff and for our families every day. So please extend our sincere gratitude to everybody on your team.
I certainly will.
Thanks for joining us.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
And thank you for listening to the Vestavia Hills City Schools podcast.